Welcome back to Inside Assemble AI, the podcast where we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming business strategy and innovation. I'm Sam, and alongside my co host, Mac, we continue our mission to cut through the AI hype and bring you real insights from leaders who are implementing AI strategically in their organization. In our previous episodes, we explored AI in education, executive leadership, and community building. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most critical roles in the AI transformation, product management. Before we get started, I want to share a little bit of disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host or guest and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position of any organizations. The podcast is intended to provide general educational information and entertainment purposes only.
Thanks, Sam. Our episode is called AI First Product Strategy and the Future of Product Management. And we are asking, how is AI fundamentally reshaping what it means to be a product professional? And what does success look like when building AI enabled products? We'll explore practical AI workflows for product managers, dive into the unique challenges of AI product development, and discuss how to drive adoption among non technical users. Today, we are joined by Jane Hanson, a seasoned product leader with over 15 years of experience building and launching products at early stage startups. She's led 0 to 1 product development across multiple industries and now works as a fractional product consultant, helping founders define MVPs and align teams. Jane is also a co-organizer of AI and Product Colorado, a community exploring how AI is reshaping product management. What makes Jane's perspective unique is her hands-on experience with both traditional product development and the emerging world of AI-first product strategies, combined with her passion for helping product managers overcome the overwhelm and uncertainty around AI adoption. Jane, we are excited to have you here to share your insights to this rapidly evolving field.
Thank you, Sam and Mac. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jen. So let's get into the Q&A section. So we're going to start off with AI's impact on product management. So let's start with the big picture. So how do you see AI reshaping the traditional responsibilities of a product management professional?
So this is a great question because on the one hand, it's going to transforming product management. On the other hand, I think the core responsibilities really remain the same. So as a product person, your core responsibility is understanding your customer and knowing your customer and how they're using their product and what their pain points are, and thinking about how to make that experience as frictionless and user-friendly as possible. And then working with internal stakeholders, engineering teams, basically every department in a company to make that happen. And if you're at a smaller company, that scope might be larger. If you're at a larger company, your scope might be narrower. But in my opinion, that is kind of the core responsibilities of a product manager. And that doesn't change. What does change is how you can do your job and ways you can explore making it easier and allowing yourself to have the space to be more strategic. So there are a lot of different applications you can use AI for in your day-to-day job in terms of the simple things like asking ChatGPT or Claude to brainstorm, bounce ideas off of, using AI note takers to take notes so that you can be more present and really listening in meetings and making sure everything's captured properly. And these AI chatbots especially, I think of them almost as interns, and they might not have the best common sense. They might be a little overeager. They might be a little overconfident. And so you have to keep that in mind. You can't hand the keys over to these AI chatbots and these AI agents to let them do what they think is best. But with supervision, can make your job a lot easier and free you up to think more strategically and be, rushing around less.
Thanks, Jen. I mean, I won't consider it as a significant shift in how we think about the product management role.
Mm-hmm.
Since you've been in the field for more than 15 years. So in your opinion, what do you think about this AI first product strategy look like? And how is it different from the traditional approaches to product strategy? that you've seen in last few years?
Yeah. In terms of AI first product strategy, I would, and I'll probably be saying this a lot throughout the episode, very much start with the customer and the pain point and not the technology. There's definitely, so I'm mostly from the startup world, and especially in the startup world, although I think it's the case everywhere, there's a real push from management, from investors to incorporate AI somewhere because it's, the shiny new object. And it's really important to get back to, okay, what pain point is there that was difficult to solve before that AI now opens us up to being able to solve in a way that we couldn't before. So I would, when it comes to product strategy, I would always start there. In terms of when AI makes sense though and what changes in the strategy, the lack of determinism that traditional logic, rule-based technology platforms have is something that needs to be accounted for. If you ask a chatbot the same question twice, you are not going to get the same answer. And sometimes it's going to get it wrong. And you need to be monitoring how your customers interact with these new AI features. If they get frustrated, have some sort of fallback if they don't want to use the AI anymore, if something's failing. So these kinds of fallbacks and making sure you're really paying attention to how your customers are using it is always important, but especially important when implementing AI features.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I understand the AI is bringing a lot of innovative ideas and it's going to give us some sort of flexibility of doing something that we never thought before. But the fundamental approach of the product strategy remains the same. It still aligns with the business strategy. Doesn't matter what toolkits or technology we use. We still have to understand the pain point and maybe use AI to address that in more efficient way. So love that, Jen. Thank you for your perspective on this question. To move ahead with this episode, I'm going to pass it over to Mac for the next question answer segment around AI in product workflows. Mac, over to you.
Thanks, Sam. Jane, completely agree with you that what you just said in terms of the product, because the fundamental responsibilities and roles are still the same. So someone as a product leaders who is coming from a finance background or pharmaceutical background, still he or she should know about the business, about the fundamental stuff, like how to execute the product. So I think the only thing change actually how we can execute the stuff. Like as you mentioned, that taking the notes in the meeting, right? Because I know like products when they are hosting the meetings with their clients, it's tough actually because like they are in the discussion with their clients and at the same time like they're also taking the notes. So I think that is a like game changing part. I mean to me because now I am getting the notes and even more detailed. So I do not need to worry about the writing the notes, and also like creating the documentation. I know like the product people because I was also involved in the product management heavily. And I see like a lot of product because they will have to write down like tremendous numbers of documents, and it's a huge documents. I mean, like the product ownership and all stuff. So I completely agree with you. And having said that, I want to get a little bit more practical now. So, what are the biggest opportunities for product managers to leverage AI in their day-to-day workflows? Where are you seeing the most immediate impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, a lot of it to me is the helpfulness and the productivity so that you can be more present and more strategic and speak to customers more, things like this. And one area we haven't talked about yet, but is a very hot topic in product management right now is vibe coding. And I spoke to someone just a couple weeks ago. She's a product manager and she was talking about how she never even brings presentations to meetings anymore. She just vibe codes something and she'll run this by her stakeholders and see, oh, is this what you're looking for? Is this how you would want this to work? Here's my understanding of it. And then they work together on oh no, we don't want it to do that, like kind of honing it. And then she'll take that and go to her engineers and then say, okay, this is what they're looking for. And that's going to be so much more effective than just trying to get some sort of write up to the best of your ability. You hear the pictures worth 1,000 words and, an actual app is worth even more than that. And I thought that was a really innovative way to be using vibe coding as a communication tool. And I'm a big believer in using vibe coding to help show a vision, not to build it yourself. That's not what you're doing. You're just trying, in this case anyway, I'm talking about it for prototyping purposes and just to show, okay, this is what I have in mind, and then show the engineers, okay, this is what they have in mind, and actually making sure that that kind of feedback loop is complete so the right thing is getting built. Then you've got, in terms of workflows, there are tools like Zapier and Make and many of these others that can help connect systems that might not talk to each other very easily. And that might help you synthesize customer data or run reports or just about anything you can kind of think of. There are a lot of AI applications that do a specific thing. And then the tools like this are kind of your flex, so to speak, if we're talking in kind of a fantasy sports, analogy. It can do just about anything if you know how to use it. So it's almost, at this point, it's limited more by the imagination than it is by the technical hurdles. Like, if you have an idea of something, oh man, this would make my life so much easier, probably you can figure out how to do it. You don't know how to do it, I'm a big believer in just asking someone else. People love to help and teach and help others learn. So if there's something that you're stuck on that you're doing day to day that doesn't necessarily fit in a clean box, like, with some of these AI apps, you can probably figure out how to build it and make your life easier.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with this. And also, like, wanted to add one more point. Like, vibe coding is actually game changing because in terms of like preparing the deck, right? I mean, creating just a prototype, working prototype. So if I have something in my mind to enhance the modules, and like I can simply do the vibe code, and like I can create the module. So I do not need to wait for my IT people anymore. I can do it by myself, and I can just like show it to my manager or like the leadership team. Like, this is my proposal. It's purely like I completely like agree with you. Having said, my next question. So when you are building AI enabled products, whether as a consultant or in your previous startup roles, what unique challenges do you face during the development life cycle that you would not encounter with traditional products?
It's interesting because when we talk about the development life cycle, when we think of AI, we think of the engineering side, the tech side. But honestly, I think that what changes, those things obviously change, and I'll kind of go back to that. But something that changes is the discovery and truly understanding what a user's pain point is and what they want, which is not always the same as what they're asking for, because they don't know what's possible with AI. AI tools are changing all the time, every day. They're probably, unless they're a very sophisticated user, they're not staying on top of that. And that's not their job. That's your job, is to understand what they're getting stuck on and what could be the best solution to their problem. So I think truly understanding not necessarily what they're asking for, but what they might be stuck on in that discovery phase is a huge thing that changes. In terms of we'll move into design next. If you're implementing an AI feature, it's important to let your user know in some way or another it is an AI feature. It might not be great. Implement, maybe a thumbs up, thumbs down, something like that, to allow the user to give feedback. The UX side of this is something that, as we're implementing AI, some users are used to using AI tools and some aren't. And you need to be able to design for all of them and make that make sense and not be off-putting to someone who doesn't know anything about AI. When it comes to the kind of engineering step, I think an engineer understanding what you're trying to accomplish, it's always important. It's not that it was not important, but it's even more important because just as, the customer might not know what they want, you try to understand their pain point, that engineer's probably going to be more technical than you. And so you might be asked, you might have your idea of what the best solution is, but it's very much like needs to be a conversation because an engineer might know even, an even better solution. So understanding, having that conversation about the pain points with your engineering team is important. When you get to kind of the QA phase, again, it's not deterministic. And so it used to be, okay, your acceptance criteria is, boom, boom, does this. This is the expected result, all these things. It's more about an array of expected results and what's okay and what's not, and having some sort of fallback. And then once you've launched it and you're looking at results, very much keep an eye on if it has an AI feature, because there is some level of unpredictability. And if something is going wrong, you want to be able to identify it quickly.
Love that. Uh, Completely agree with you. And, so it's finding the customer pain points and moving them to the right direction, with the help of AI. And sometimes, from my experience that I have seen, they know their pain, but still they don't know what the right solution for it. And I think, AI is going to help, like with the analytics, with the analyzers, with the like latest AI tools. I think that also like give us a lot of right direction, like how we can come to the right solution. So I think, I absolutely agree with that. And with that, for our next segment, collaboration and decision making, I'm going to pass it over to Sam. See you, Sam.
Thanks, Mac. And I love the way the discussion is going. And I like the fact that, Jen, you coined the term vibe coding because I just feel like the vibe coding has been a game changer recently, especially when it comes to building proof of concept, because now we don't have to wait for hours or days to build a proof of concept tool. And we can like literally just spend some hours and utilize tools like Lovable or Replit or Cursor to build a PLC tool and probably show it to a potential investor. So that's definitely a very like an eye opener for folks, and especially I give kudos to Andres Carfati, who actually coined the vibe coding term back in February. I mean, hats off to that guy to come up with that idea. Now, this particular segment, I want to deep down a little bit about something that you experienced in your previous role. Like Jen, you mentioned that you've been in the startups area for a long time, and as we know that in the startups, roles often overlap. Like, and you mentioned that sometime you also acted as a data scientist in your previous work experience. So just wanted to kind of like pick your brain here. Is that as a data scientist, how did you collaborate with engineering teams to align on AI ML capabilities with user needs? Do you envision that that particular data scientist role kind of like going to get changed due to this emergence of Gen AI in today's world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I guess, starting with your last point, like most roles in tech, the data scientist role will evolve. I don't think it goes away, but I think a lot of what used to be very
That's correct.
manual and time intensive,
Mhm.
automated in such a way that the data scientist can kind of take a step back and absorb, okay, are these trends, that AI is surfacing for me? Like, what can I make out of this, and what can I show to the engineers and the product teams and whoever might be interested in that, like, to help inform their decisions. So I think the more I'm a big, so my background is actually math and science, like my undergrad, and I'm a big believer in the more data, the better. If you
No,
don't use
large
it,
numbers, right?
exactly, exactly. If you don't use it, fine. Like, storage isn't an issue anymore. That's essentially a solved problem. Like, I'm a big believer in just having it on hand, and if you use it, great, and if you don't, that's completely fine. You never know when you're going to want to. So I just think that that communication gets even tighter between product and engineering and data science in terms of being able to iterate quickly, see trends quickly, be able to surface maybe interesting insights, for the business as well, how people are using their products, what they might want to add on to get a competitive advantage. So I think there are a lot of, you know, at the end of the day, AI is only as good as the data under it. And so the data scientist role not going away, very much important, but can be more strategic the way I believe a product manager's role can now move to be less, to offload some of the manual things to be more strategic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. As someone who also came from a data science background, I mean, I could tell that there are so many exploratory stuff that, we can offload to AI right now, and we can be more strategic, and maybe data scientists can spend more time in building algorithms, and they can work with the product managers and to come up with like a better approach on building probably a better recommendation engine or something like that. So it definitely gives us a lot of flexibility. Now, even as a data scientist, I feel like people are not wearing a lot of multiple hats right now because AI could take over some of the hats. And I think that is something resonates with the product managers as well. So thank you for your perspective, and totally agree with you on some of the points that you mentioned. Oh, I want to take the next question to more of like a practical approach standpoint. I know that AI is a fancy tool. AI is going to do a lot of stuff. We definitely are utilizing AI for a lot of mundane tasks to transform that into kind of like a revolutionary products, and we'll continue to do so. But there is always a risk element tied to that. So in your opinion, when you're planning on, building an AI product, how do you balance innovation in AI with user trust, transparency, and explainability? Especially when users might not understand how AI features work. Like for them, it is just a black box. So how do you influence the decision-making process to make sure the user understand that, the AI tool they're using is safe and it's trustworthy?
Yeah, great question. I think that involving, if you are, again, I've been at small startups where people wear a lot of hats. At larger companies, especially when there are design experts, UI, UX experts who understand and have experience implementing AI features in a positive way and have the war stories about how things went wrong and not, definitely utilize those people because we're all making mistakes and all need to learn from it. I think in terms of transparency, I am a big believer in transparency. Don't hide that it's AI because your user base might not like it. Think about your customers though. Think about, they are they excited by AI features on the whole, or are they off put by AI and they think AI is, you know, dumb because they saw it hallucinate once, or unreliable, or whatever it is? And just take that into consideration when you're deciding how to, phrase letting people know that it's AI. Just think little things like that can make such a huge difference. So definitely let them know. Make it easy. I'm a big believer in feedback too, and that all feedback is good feedback. Even if it's negative feedback, that's good feedback. Make it easy for them to give feedback. So one thing that drives me nuts is when a website will have a pop-up for a customer survey that you can't get out of. Like, don't do that to your customers. Don't make it hard for them to give you feedback. Have the thumbs up, and thumbs down. Have okay, they can optionally add more information if they want to, but don't make them do that. Don't put that burden on them. Make it very, very easy, but also give them an outlet to say, hey, I'm frustrated. It told me this or whatever, because that's really important information. You want to know that. You want to know if something's going wrong. And again, metrics, measure everything, measure when a user is getting frustrated, measure when they drop off, make sure there is some sort of way for them to drop out of whatever it is you're trying to do, unless it is completely, totally core to the product. But if it is some sort of add on feature, make sure they can get out of it and go use a more traditional method. But just measure everything. I really like Full Story. For those who don't know what that is, that will record a user session. And I really like, you've got different analytics tools that will have heat maps, and you've got Google Analytics where you've got click-throughs and all these things, and that's also great. But I don't think anything necessarily beats watching someone using your product, and where they're hovering their mouse and where they're kind of stuck and they hover over something, and because they seem confused or something like that. So I'm a big believer in just watching people, and you can only do this so much, but in addition to these quantitative metrics, also just watch how they're using it. how they're moving their mouse, where they seem to be hesitating, things like that, and just try to make everything as seamless as possible for them.
Definitely. I mean, doesn't matter whether we are using AI and stuff or not AI. I guess as a product management perspective, it's always the utmost priority is to make sure how you can make your user experience seamless and kind of make them feel comfortable in using the product. And that will definitely help a product manager, even the startups, to kind of like probably launch their products and also, I guess, get more exposure around it. So definitely agree with you that it's all about like how you're making your customer feel happy about the product. Having said that, I'm going to pass it over to Mac for the next segment of the Q&A session.
Thanks, Sam. Of the conversations about the first one is the data science one, and I completely agree with both of you on that. You know, that when I, as a program manager, that when I used to be dependent on the data scientist, sometimes for like for the data analyzing part, analytics part, like I had to wait, sometime months, sometime weeks, right? So now, like due to the blessings of AI stuff and all the cool stuff, I'm now getting the answers from them maybe within a week or maybe, like, I mean, just in a few days. And for the second one, like, about the trust factor, I would think like, whenever I think it should be a little bit of balance more because when we're dealing with the customer data and, like customer, you know, they just need I mean, the right answer, the right data, the right output. They don't care that whether we are using the AI or ML or any kind of AI tools or LLMs. So in that sense, like I remember that when one of our data scientists using the LLM model, and the data source was not refreshed, so it was old, and that's why like there are a lot of hallucination at that point. I mean, for having the actual output. So that's in that sense, I think we should be a little bit of careful, like whenever we are approaching with AI and ML, especially when we are dealing with the customer data. And having said, let's talk a little bit about the user feedback and the iteration. So speaking of user understanding, how do you gather user feedback and iterate when users don't fully understand or trust AI features? This seems like a unique challenge for the product managers. So what is your opinion on?
That's a great question. And yes and no, I guess, because as I think it was Sam, you mentioned that a lot of things don't change with AI. A lot of things change and a lot of things don't change. And kind of as I, mentioned before, looking at the attrition and, the sessions, things like that, that's all the same. I think, and going into kind of the users, if they're understanding that they're using AI, you want to be transparent. But for example, have this company that I worked with earlier this year, and it was this ed tech company out of San Francisco. And they built an app that preschool teachers would use to give literacy assessments to their 4-year-olds, so to their preschoolers, basically. And this was something that automated. They used to have to sit down with every child and say, okay, what is this? They would show a letter. Okay, what is this letter? Okay, what letter does this sound, or sorry, what sound does this letter make? And they would give an evaluation. And this company developed an app where the preschoolers would speak into it, and it used ASR, automatic speech recognition, trained on a model that was specifically trained on how 4-year-olds speak, which there are a lot of challenges in that. It's hard as a human just to understand sometimes 4-year-olds. So it was a fun problem though. We did a lot of annotation, a lot of correcting of it. But it would do this, it would give these tests in a arguably less biased way than teachers would, because some teachers were maybe more lenient, or oh, they got it on the third try, and the other teachers were more strict. So anyway, it was giving like this great data set, but these and it was all powered by AI and machine learning. But these are preschool teachers that don't have technical backgrounds, and 4-year-olds, like they don't know they're using an AI product. and they don't care because it's useful to them. And it's like the users don't need to know how it works. I think sometimes as like tech nerds, we want to explain how things work sometimes. The user doesn't need to know everything that goes into it. The more seamless you can make it, the better. And I think the way you do that is to integrate it in a way that is solving a pain point, and someone wouldn't even think twice about the fact that AI is powering it.
Love that. So when you are measuring the success of these AI powered features, what metrics or KPIs do you track to determine whether they are actually working? And how is this different from the traditional product metrics?
Yeah, I guess there are some similarities. One thing to note first though is, are they using it? Because you're adding a feature, it's probably optional. Is it being used? Is like step 1. And if not, why not? Is it confusing? Is it intimidating? And maybe you can get some feedback by actually just asking customers that. Maybe you can infer it by different kind of things they're doing on the site. But it's important to make sure that it is very user friendly and visible enough that you can get metrics on it in the first place. And then there is the how often do they hit the eject button basically and and want to exit the experience, that attrition kind of that we talked about. And the feedback, the yes, the no. One thing to note too when you're developing on existing features, this is something actually I noticed with this children's literacy um, like model that was being trained. When you add data, it doesn't necessarily make it more accurate. And so throughout, yes, there's introducing a new feature and you want to make sure users understand it and they understand what's happening and can give feedback. Just because you get past that step, as you improve upon it and think that what you're doing will necessarily make it better, just know that you need to check everything, because assumptions that you might think are safe to make aren't necessarily safe to make. So as you're iterating, as you're improving, make sure you're checking those basic things. Don't assume, okay, we got past this hurdle where you know, we got 96% thumbs up or whatever it is. And so now as we're adding data, it's going to make it better. That's not true. So it's making sure that you're really watching what's happening and keeping open-minded and reevaluating regularly, in addition to the kind of normal adoption and engagement metrics.
Yeah. So human intervention is still needed because
Mhm.
we can't completely rely on the AI on this stuff. Great answer. So our next segment, like driving AI adoptions, I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Thanks, Mac. Definitely agree with you that we have to keep the humans in the loop, no matter how sophisticated AI model that we are using. It's necessary at this moment for sure. Now, in terms of AI adoption, I guess there are some listeners out there who are also from the product management background, and I think they'll be interested to listen to your answers to this question. Can you share a specific example of how you have successfully introduced an AI feature to users who were initially skeptical or confused about it? And if you can share a journey of initial skepticism to that fully reliant on that AI tool from your past work experience with AI toolkits.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, honestly, a best example is probably kind of going back to that children's literacy, where especially with non-technical users, especially with in education with teachers,
Yeah,
where that human connection is more important to a
exactly.
teacher than arguably anyone. You can make arguments, but
Yeah,
getting past that trust of, oh, a machine's gonna evaluate my student, like that, there's an inherent distrust in that. And understanding, first of all, like very much listening, like listen to concerns, don't just say why you're right, like very much. A lot of times people just kind of need to be heard, and it's important to understand where they're coming from. But I think that was that was very broad, the adoption of the product as a whole and getting that trust and helping them understand that this allows, having these tests automated allows you to spend more time teaching your students and
Exactly.
helping them grow and not having to, take a student aside while the other ones are just, you know, kind of killing time while you can get their assessments done. And now it's not going to take weeks. It's going to, you know, take every student aside and you have to do it several times throughout the year because they're learning so fast at that age. Like now they can do it in a day. All of their students can be tested. And now the rest of this week, month is actually spent understanding where they need help and where they can, and actually like helping them learn faster. And it was like proven that early education programs that used this app, their students were learning faster because that evaluation was done more quickly. And so I think when it comes to, so again, this was probably about as human centered as you could get, but making a case for why AI, which is honestly really easy to do, even though it seems sometimes counterintuitive, why AI helps with human interaction. It makes things more human because it frees us up to have time to interact with humans more. And again, every customer is different, pain point is different, but if you're trying to get a user to, overcome, if you're trying to get them to overcome some sort of aversion, you should be able to make a good argument as to why it is making their lives easier, hopefully helping with human connection. If you can't, then you probably need to rethink what you're doing and if it is the right solution, because AI isn't always the right solution. Sometimes you do need more determinism. Sometimes traditional, rule-based logic is fine. That's enough. You don't need to leave it up, leave it up to chance. So in general, if like very much listen, but if you can't make a like solid case as to why it is in their best interest, then reevaluate.
Yep. No, definitely. I mean, I can draw that the hammer and nail analogy
Mhm.
where AI is the hammer, but it doesn't necessary that you will find nail in every time, like you have to make a judicious decision on, whether AI is the correct tool to use it, or, that is something that can be done in using traditional machine learning models and stuff. And I think I like that it is a very practical example of how that the teachers are getting benefited from an AI toolkits that can automatically grade some of the students' paper and gaining them some efficiency, some hours back that they can invest in nurturing the kids in a better way. So it's definitely a value addition, but it probably not the case in other scenario. Maybe we still have to rely on some traditional approach. So thanks for sharing the example. I guess some of the listeners from the product management background get some, they already probably start getting some notes there, and they can utilize that in their respective working world. So thanks, Jen. Now, you have been I would say, a great AI ambassador in the Colorado AI community, and you've done a tons of voluntary work as a co-host of, or as a co-founder of AI and Product Colorado. So through your work with AI and Product Colorado, you're probably seeing some trends across the industry, because I guess, I mean, that's one of the things I like about Denver AI community is growing so fast, and there's so many people from different industry verticals are members of that community. So what trends in AI do you think the product manager especially should start preparing for today, based on your interaction with the other industry, people from the other industry vertical, or product managers from other business spaces?
Yeah, first of all, wherever you are located, look for, I'm so glad I joined and now I'm, co-organizing some local events. Wherever you're located, there are probably local AI groups. I really recommend joining them. I have learned so much from attending and from hosting these, guests we have. They know a lot more than I do about some of these things. They're experts and it's awesome. And so there's so much to learn. So just starting there, if you have time, if there are like organizations near you, which there almost certainly are, like very much highly recommend joining them and just observing. In terms of the trends I've witnessed, I would say that certain topics kind of come and go. Vibe coding is the hot topic right now. Anytime that anyone's talking about vibe coding, that was our largest meetup to date. We had an event called the Vibe Games, which was kind of a Hunger Games themed vibe coding event where we had 3 expert vibe coders that we called our tributes vibe code something in 45 minutes that was product related and had a silly twist on it. But the point was to show people kind of how easy some of these tools are. Yes, there's a learning curve, and yes, it's easy to get 70% of the way there, and getting that extra 30 can be really hard. Vibe coding is a hot topic that I do not see going away anytime soon. I think that the skill set of designers that have incorporated AI features is becoming more and more desirable because there are more features being incorporated, and there is that, a lot of users, we're in, the tech space where we use AI tools and it's like, oh, this is powered by AI. This is great. It's going to make my lives easier. That's not how a lot of people feel. So having designers that have that experience can be really helpful. I think in general, when it comes to what product managers need to know, as always, the product manager role has been fairly broad, and it involves being a bit of a jack of all trades, being able to talk to people of different technical levels, backgrounds, things like that. I really recommend that product managers just stay stay aware of the trends and what's going on and the new tools that are coming out. And that being said, you're not going to know everything. There is way too much changing way too fast, but it will help you in your job understanding, having that gut feeling of what can be solved with AI and what can't. So in terms of the trends, they're always changing, but I recommend, following certain people on LinkedIn or joining groups. I enjoy the meetups because you just speak to other people who are living it and can tell you how they're using it. And I don't think anything can really replace that, like speaking to an expert and learning from them. But definitely for product people, just have a choose 1 or 2 tools to get great at, and then just kind of, or more if you can, that's awesome, but have a general broad awareness of the trends and tools so that you can like either just incorporate them into your day to day and make it easier, or like you might want to consider adding that to your products to make the lives of your customers easier.
Thanks. Love it, Jen. And I totally agree with you on 2 points. The vibe coding is not going away. And also, please try to join your local AI community to get connected with people with the same mindset and who are also eager to learn about getting on to the AI journey. Having said that, I'm going to pass it over to Mac for the final segment of Q&A section.
Thanks, Sam. Jane, I love that the way you presented about the joining the local AI community, and for all listeners like who are listening to it. So definitely, wherever you are, just join to an AI community. Even though, Jane, you mentioned about vibe coding, you mentioned about the prototyping. So I remember that when I first actually attended one AI meetup in Philly, I first came to know about the vibe coding. I didn't even know about from my office. I also came to know about the prototyping stuff, which tools that we're going to use, the prompt engineering stuff, all from virtual conferences. So if you really want to upskill yourself, you definitely need to join local AI community, or you should attend virtual conferences for sure. Having said, my next question to you, looking ahead, how do you see the product management discipline evolving as AI becomes more prevalent? What skills or mindsets will be most important?
I think that product managers have an opportunity to really, especially if they're able to free up some of their time, to be more innovative and create and strategic and be more strategic. And at least in my experience, I found myself like leaning toward more of a getting in the weeds with the tech and being able to read code and do the QA and things like that. That's everyone's journey is different. That's kind of what mine is. And as AI is evolving, I kind of see myself being able to be more creative being able to lean into curiosity, and those that almost kind of felt like a luxury before, I guess, where it was just kind of like you're this hamster in this wheel and you're just trying to get everything done as fast as possible to the customers and keeping, C-suite happy and all these things. And being able to lean into that kind of curiosity is, I think, honestly, that quality. Like if I were hiring for a PM, curiosity is probably the most important skill, in my opinion, for someone using AI, because no one knows this stuff. You just have to learn it. You have to wonder. And maybe it is something professional that'll get you interested. For me, I started using AI because I had fun with like messing around with Midjourney for just for images, because I have no artistic ability, but it was fun to me, and that was kind of my gateway. And then I got
Well,
into the chatbots, and I got into the other things but it's that curiosity and willingness to learn. And you are going to have to be constantly learning because the tools change all the time. And anything we talked about on this podcast, maybe a year from now, half of these tools won't exist anymore. I was actually on a website earlier that someone mentioned Google's Bard. I was like, oh my God, Bard. But what? It was probably only last year when that name changed. It hasn't even been that long. So for those who don't know, it's now Gemini, but it used to be called Bard. Things like that. It changes so fast. So people who have kind of that lifelong love of learning and curiosity, I think those skills are going to get you far in the product world as AI tools evolve and as it becomes more core to every product. And you don't see, an AI product manager title anymore. You just see product manager because it's assumed that that's part of it. So if you have that, like I very much encourage people to lean into that and find what lights your fire, whatever it is that interests you and sparks that, because you can use AI tools for something completely unrelated to your professional work. I started vibe coding, again, just doing silly choose your own adventure games, because I found that amusing and I enjoyed sharing it with friends and family. And then they got interested in vibe coding. And these are the things, but I learned hitting walls and I learned how to solve them. And so now I can use vibe coding in a more professional way because I've been through some of the things you just learn along the way, the bumps in the road. So very much lean into the curiosity and
Love that. So, and my last question is that, so for the product managers listening who are excited about the AI, but maybe feeling overwhelmed or unsure what to begin, what advice do you have for them?
yeah, and it is overwhelming. And I would say start small and just pick something, and some pain point, some tool, something you think is fun, some hobby. It doesn't matter. You have to, that first step, it's it's something. If you aren't sure what to pick for yourself, maybe you have a friend or family member who you see them just doing the same repetitive thing over and over. And it's like, oh my God, maybe sometimes it's easier to solve other people's problems than it is to solve your own. So whatever it is that gets you going, just start somewhere. And you will, whether you use it for a professional reason or for fun or whatever it is, you're going to learn how to use these tools. And that's the important thing. It doesn't really matter what the first thing you create is, it's the process of learning how to prompt and what goes wrong and what level of detail you need, and at what point you scrap something and start over, because sometimes you're going to get to your solution faster that way, which to me surprised me. But then I tried that. Someone suggested it to me. I tried it and it worked. So start small. Recommend finding, again, going back to that community element, there are a lot of people who feel like they should know more than they do and should have tried, more than they have, and that's totally okay. And there are a lot of people like that. Find someone with a similar level of experience and say, hey, we're going to learn, like, let's learn napkin this week. Let's learn, I don't know, pick, whatever tool, but let's do something together, or make something and then share what we learned, something like that. Like, I think, um, like that community element can really help motivate. And then in the AI community, anyone I've asked has been so willing and eager to help. I don't know if it's a quality of the type of people who like to use AI, are the curious, are the ones who like to learn, are the ones that like to teach, or if it just happens to be that we have an amazing, exceptionally amazing community here, which, is also possible, and they are absolutely amazing. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because everyone is that I've talked to is very eager and happy to help. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, and just start you just got to start somewhere, and it and make it fun. Like, don't make it feel like work if that doesn't feel good. If it is for work and it can make your life easier, I mean, that's awesome. That's a great feeling, is saving time. But whatever it is that you find motivating, just lean into that.
Of that awesome answer. Thank you so much, Jen, for that. For our last sections, I think it's time to wrap up. I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Thanks, Mac and Jen. This has been incredibly insightful and encouraging, especially for our listeners here who are product managers and trying to navigate through AI transformation. Thanks for joining us and sharing your valuable insights on how AI is reshaping product management and giving PMs some practical ways to get started. And also, it's very important for them to have that broader mindset to adopt AI for their professional work purpose or even something that can bring value to their societal work. So now I think our listeners would love to connect with you, learn about AI and Product Colorado, and they also probably want to continue this discussion about the impact of AI in product management. Then why do they find you to have this conversation?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Jen Hanson, CO for Colorado. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. AI and Product Colorado has a group on LinkedIn, also on Meetup. AI and Product Colorado is a subgroup of the Rocky Mountain AI Interest Group. So if you go to RMAIIG, a little bit of a long acronym, but we are there. They have I think 11 other subgroups. So if you're interested in AI in general, but also interested in education, engineering, things like that, definitely join. There's a Slack group, and we are a part of that. So I'm also very easy to get a hold of on Slack. And those are the ways you can reach out, and love to talk.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks for taking the time to meet us from your busy schedule, having this for an hour. Very engaging and thoughtful conversation with us. For our listeners, we're going to actually share the link to AI and Product Colorado and their LinkedIn page in the podcast description. Please check it out. And thanks to all of you for listening to this episode. If you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe and share it with your product managers, founders, or anyone building AI powered products. Until next time, this is another episode of Inside Assemble AI, delivering our core message. Keep innovating, but keep it strategic. Thank you.
Thank you.